Jake Morrison stood in the Great Hall of Nexus Prime. The massive space station floated between the stars, home to the Galactic Council. He had been Earth's ambassador for 10 years. Today felt different. Today felt wrong. The alien beings around him whispered in their strange languages. The Zephyrians looked like tall blue cats with golden eyes. The Vorthic resembled walking trees with too many arms. The Malari were small and gray, always counting things on their fingers. All of them stared at Jake with cold eyes. Prime Minister Velther stepped forward. He was the leader of the Zephyrians and the most powerful being in the Empire. His voice was smooth but cruel. "Human ambassador," Velther said, "we have new rules for your species." Jake felt his heart sink. For 50 years, humans had worked with the Empire. They traded rare metals from Earth's colonies. They shared technology. They sent their best and brightest to serve on alien worlds. Earth had 12 colony systems now, each one helping the Empire grow stronger. What kind of rules? Jake asked. Velther smiled, showing sharp teeth. Compliance protocols. Earth must give us 80% of your young people for military service. You must hand over all research on thinking machines. You must accept our overseers on every human world. The other council members nodded. They had planned this together. Jake looked around the room for any friendly faces. He found none. "This is slavery," Jake said quietly. "This is order," Velther replied. "Humans are useful, but you must know your place. You have 30 days to accept these terms. If you refuse, we will take what we need by force." Jake's hands shook with anger. "I need to speak with my government." "Speak all you want," Velther said. "The decision is made. Dismissed." Jake left the hall with his escort, a young human named Kelly, who worked at the embassy. Neither of them spoke until they reached the secure communication room. "Send an emergency." "Message to President Carter," Jake said. "Tell her we're in trouble." Back on Earth, President Lisa Carter sat in the Oval Office. She was a strong woman who had led the country through difficult times. When Jake's message came through, she felt a chill run down her spine. General Rick Hayes burst into the room. He was Earth's top military officer, a man who had served in 3 wars. His face was grim. "Madam President," he said, "our spies in the Empire have sent reports. This isn't just about new rules. They're planning to replace us entirely." Lisa stood up. "What do you mean?" "They've been studying us for years. How we think, how we fight, how we build things. They want to use us up and throw us away. The other species they've done this to before are all gone now. Dead or enslaved." Lisa felt sick. "How many species?" "At least 40 that we know of. The Empire tells everyone they died out naturally. But we found the truth. They were all destroyed when they became too useful." The door opened again. Dr. Amy Foster walked in. She was Earth's chief scientist, a brilliant woman who had helped design most of their advanced technology. She carried a thick folder. "I heard about the Council's demands," she said. "I think it's time to show you Project Gatekeeper." Lisa had heard whispers about secret projects. "What is it?" Amy opened the folder. Inside were plans for a massive device. 10 years ago, we started working on this. It's a hyperspace barrier generator. If we activate it, it will cut off all connections between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. "All connections?" Rick asked. "Everything. No ships in or out. No communications. No trade. We would be completely alone." Lisa stared at the plans. "For how long?" "Forever," Amy said quietly. "Once it's activated, there's no going back. The energy requirements are so massive that we can only do it once." The room was silent. Outside, Lisa could see the busy streets of Washington. People going about their normal lives, not knowing their world was about to change forever. "What about our colonies?" Lisa asked. Amy looked sad. "They're too far away. We can only protect the Sol system. Our people on other worlds will be trapped with the Empire." Rick clenched his fists. "They'll use our colonists as hostages." "They're already planning to use them as slaves," Amy replied. "At least this way, Earth survives." Lisa walked to the window. Somewhere out there, among the stars, millions of humans lived on distant worlds. They had families, dreams, lives. If she activated this device, she would be abandoning them. But if she didn't, everyone would die. "How long do we have?" she asked. "The device is already built," Amy said. "We just need to activate it. But once we do, there's no warning the colonies. The barrier will cut off all communication instantly." Lisa closed her eyes. She thought about her daughter, who lived on Mars. She thought about the million humans on New Texas. She thought about the children on Europa Station. Then she thought about the 40 species that had trusted the Empire and were now extinct. What are our chances if we stay and fight? Rick shook his head. The Empire has 1,000,000 worlds. They have weapons we can't imagine. If we fight them directly, we lose. Amy stepped forward. But if we hide behind the barrier, we can develop new technology. We can become stronger. Maybe someday we can help the galaxy. Lisa turned from the window. Her decision would affect every human in the galaxy. But she had to protect Earth. She had to give humanity a chance to survive. "Send word to Jake," she said. "Tell him to stall for time. Make the Empire think we're considering their demands." Amy nodded. "And Project Gatekeeper?" Lisa looked at both of them. These were good people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. They deserved better than this choice. "Prepare for activation," she said. "In 3 days, Earth goes dark." The next 3 days passed in a blur of secret meetings and preparations. The massive device, hidden beneath the Nevada desert, hummed with power. Scientists worked around the clock to make final adjustments. Jake sent regular reports from Nexus Prime. The Empire was getting impatient. They had moved warships to the edge of human space. The threat was real. On the final day, Lisa stood in the underground control room. Hundreds of technicians worked it there. Stations. The air was thick with tension. "All systems ready, Madam President," Amy reported. Lisa picked up the red phone that connected her to every human government on Earth. "This is President Carter. Project Gatekeeper is about to activate. God help us all." She looked at the big red button in front of her. Once she pressed it, humanity would be alone in the universe. "Do it," she said. Amy pressed the button. The lights flickered. The ground shook. Far above them, invisible energy spread out from Earth, racing toward the edge of the solar system. In space, the barrier formed. It was invisible to the naked eye, but it was there, stronger than any wall, harder than any armor. Earth had shut its gates, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months had passed since Earth went silent. Commander Alex Stone stood on the bridge of his ship, the Eternal Victory. Around him, 200 Empire warships moved through space toward the Sol system. Alex had never seen a fleet this large before. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're getting close to the human system." Still no response to our signals. Alex frowned. He had known humans for years. They were always talking, always sending messages. This silence was not normal. "Keep trying," he ordered, "and prepare the scanners. I want to know what happened to them." In the Empire's capital city on Corvan, chaos filled the streets. Emperor Zarnthal sat on his golden throne, watching reports from across the galaxy. His advisor, a nervous Milari, named Kix, stood beside him with a data pad. "The situation is getting worse, Your Majesty," Kix said. "Without human technology, Our medical centers are failing. The Vorthik are dying from diseases we can't cure anymore. The Emperor's eyes glowed red with anger. How could one small species cause so much trouble? We didn't realize how much we depended on them, Kix replied. Their computers run our food distribution. Their engineers maintain our power plants. Their doctors trained our medical staff. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, merchant ships sat empty at the docks. The Melari trader Zeph looked at his empty warehouses and wanted to cry. Half of his goods came from human worlds. The other half needed human-made tools to produce. 40 years of business, he said to his assistant. All gone because those humans decided to disappear? His assistant, a young Vorthik named Fel, looked at the empty shipping schedules. Maybe they'll come back? Zeph shook his head. You don't understand. When humans make a decision, they stick to it. They're the most stubborn species in the galaxy. Back. In space, Commander Stone's fleet reached the edge of the Sol system. What they found made everyone stop and stare. Sir, the scanner officer said, his voice shaking, there's something around the entire system. It's like a wall, but it's made of energy. Alex looked at the main screen. He could see the barrier shimmer like heat waves. It surrounded the whole solar system, blocking everything from getting in or out. Can we scan through it? No, sir. Our scanners bounce right off. It's like the system doesn't exist anymore. Alex ordered the fleet to stop. He sent a message back to the Empire. Sol system is surrounded by unknown energy barrier. Cannot penetrate or scan. Requesting orders. Inside the Sol system, humanity was busy. Captain Ben Crawford stood on the bridge of the space station New Hope, watching construction ships work on massive defense platforms. The barrier protected them, but they knew the Empire would try to break through. How are the Mars colonies doing? He asked his aide, Lieutenant Sarah Walsh. Population is stable at 2 million, she replied. They're working on expanding the underground cities. Dr. Foster says they might be able to triple the population in 5 years. Ben nodded. Mars had always been humanity's backup plan. Now it might be their future. On Luna, physicist Tom Bradley worked in his laboratory. Without alien technology to rely on, human scientists had to solve problems in new ways. The results were amazing. I've done it, he told his team. Clean fusion power that's twice as efficient as anything the Empire has. His partner, Dr. Jane Miller, looked at the test results. This is incredible. We could power entire cities with reactors the size of buildings. That's not all, Tom said with a grin. I think I know how to make the barrier technology portable. We could put it on ships. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Carter met with her advisors in the secure bunker beneath the White House. The room was filled with screens showing data from across the solar system. The barrier is holding, General Hayes reported, but our long-range sensors show Empire ships gathering outside. They're planning something. Dr. Foster looked tired but excited. The good news is that isolation is forcing us to innovate faster than ever. Our technology is advancing at an incredible rate. What about food and resources? The president asked. The asteroid mining operations are exceeding expectations, Dr. Foster replied. We have enough raw materials to last centuries. And the new hydroponic farms on Europa are producing more food than we can eat. Carter smiled for the first time in months. So we can survive on our own? More than survive, Dr. Foster said. We're thriving. Our scientists are making breakthroughs every day. Our engineers are building things we never thought possible. Being cut off from the Empire might be the best thing that ever happened to U.S., but not everyone on Earth was happy. Senator Paul Johnson stood in Congress, speaking to a room full of worried politicians. We've abandoned millions of our people, he said. Our colonies are trapped with the Empire. Our families are separated. This barrier is a prison, not protection. Some people agreed with him. They held protests in major cities. They demanded that the government find a way to negotiate with the empire. President Carter watched the protests on TV. She understood their anger, but she also knew the truth about the empire. They destroyed species that became too useful. There was no negotiating. With that far outside the barrier, Commander Stone received new orders from the Emperor. The message was simple: break through the barrier. Use any means necessary. Alex gathered his senior officers. The Emperor wants us to attack the barrier. What do we know about it? His science officer, a crystalline named VOR, consulted his instruments. It appears to be some kind of spatial distortion, but the energy readings are off the charts. I've never seen anything like it. Can we break through? We can try, VOR said, but I recommend starting with a small test. If we use too much force, we might damage our own ships. Alex nodded. Begin with a single torpedo. Let's see what happens. The torpedo launched from the lead ship. It flew toward the barrier, its warhead containing enough power to destroy a small moon. When it hit the barrier, there was a flash of light, then nothing. Report, Alex ordered. The torpedo was completely absorbed, VOR said, amazement in his voice. The barrier didn't even flicker. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of technology could absorb that much energy without effect? Try a full spread, he ordered. All ships, fire everything you have. 1,000 weapons fired at once. Torpedoes, energy beams, particle cannons, everything the Empire's best ships could throw at the barrier. The space around the Sol system lit up like a new star. When the light faded, the barrier was unchanged. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving a message from inside the barrier. Put it on screen. The image showed a human woman in a military uniform. Alex recognized her as Captain Susan Miller, someone he had worked with before the silence. Commander Stone, she said, I know you're just following orders, but you need to understand something. We're not the same humans you used to know. We've changed. We've grown stronger. This barrier isn't just protection. It's a warning. Leave now, and no one gets hurt. Alex stared at the screen. Susan looked different, more confident, more dangerous. Susan, he said, we can work this out. The Empire doesn't want to fight. We just want to understand what happened. Susan's expression didn't change. What happened is that we learned the truth about the Empire. We know about the 40 species you destroyed. We know about the plans to replace us. We won't be your next victims. The transmission ended. Alex stood in silence, thinking about what she had said. 40 species? What was she talking about? He sent another message to the Empire. Humans claim knowledge of Empire destroying 40 species. Barrier appears impenetrable. Recommend diplomatic solution. The reply came back quickly. Diplomacy failed. Prepare for extended siege. Empire fleet of 3,000 ships en route. Break the barrier at any cost. Alex looked around his bridge. His crew was scared. They had never faced an enemy they couldn't defeat. Send a message to the fleet, he said. We're going to be here for a long time. Inside the barrier, humanity continued to grow stronger. New technologies emerged every day. New ships were built with designs the Empire had never seen. New weapons that worked on principles the aliens couldn't understand. Dr. Foster stood in her laboratory, looking at her latest creation. It was a small device, no bigger than a coin, but it could project a barrier field around an entire ship. If we can miniaturize the barrier technology, she told her team, we can put it on everything. Ships, stations, even personal armor. Tom Radley joined her, carrying his own invention. And if we combine it with my new power source, we can. Make our ships completely immune to Empire weapons." They both smiled. The Empire thought they were trapped. But they were wrong. They were transforming. Admiral Kexvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. Behind him, 3,000 Empire warships stretched across space like a metal cloud. He had been given one order: break through the barrier around Earth, no matter what it took. "Admiral," his aide reported, "all ships are in position. We're ready to begin the bombardment." Kexvar was a thermech, a species that looked like walking rocks with glowing eyes. He had conquered 40 star systems for the Empire. No enemy had ever stopped him before. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "I want every weapon firing at once." The space around the Sol system exploded with light. 3,000 ships fired everything they had at the barrier. Energy beams, missiles, plasma cannons, weapons that could destroy planets, all focused on one target. The barrier absorbed it all without a flicker. "Sir," the weapons officer said, "no effect. The barrier is unchanged." Kexvar's eyes glowed brighter. "With anger. Then we keep firing until it breaks." For 6 months, the Empire fleet bombarded the barrier. They used weapons that could crack moons. They fired energy beams that could boil oceans. Nothing worked. Back on the Empire capital world of Korvan, everything was falling apart. Emperor Zarn Thul walked through the palace gardens, but even. The flowers were dying. Without human-made fertilizers, nothing grew properly anymore. "Your Majesty," his advisor Kix said, riding up to him, "there are riots on 15 worlds. The Melari are blaming the Vorthik for the crisis. The Crystalline Collective is hoarding food." The Emperor stopped walking. "What about the Thermech? Republic? They're threatening to leave the Empire. They say they can survive without human technology." The Emperor laughed bitterly. "Fools, they'll learn soon enough." On the trading world of Nexus Prime, different species fought in the streets. The Zephyrians blamed the Melari for pushing the humans too far. The Vorthik said the Crystalline Collective was stealing resources. Everyone was angry, and no one knew how to fix the problem. Inside the Sol system, humanity was preparing for war. Captain Ben Crawford stood in the command center on New Hope Station, watching his defense fleet practice maneuvers. The ships looked different now, sleeker, faster, covered in strange energy fields. "How many ships do we have ready?" he asked Lieutenant Sarah Walsh. 200 combat vessels, sir. All equipped with the new barrier projection technology." Ben smiled. Dr. Foster's team had done the impossible. They had made the barrier technology portable. Now human ships could create their own protection wherever they went. "What about the stealth ships?" "Captain Miller has 12 ready for her next mission. They can slip through the Empire's sensors without being detected." Speaking of Captain Miller, she was preparing for another dangerous mission. Her ship, the Shadow Runner, was designed to be invisible. It could pass through the barrier and spy on the Empire fleet. "Remember," she told her crew, "we're not going out there to fight. We're going to learn about the Empire's plans. But if we find any human colonies in trouble, we help them." Her pilot, Lieutenant Dave Cooper, checked his instruments. "The stealth system is working perfectly. They won't even know we're there." Miller nodded. She had been on 20 missions beyond the barrier. Each time, she learned something new about the Empire's true nature. They weren't just conquerors. They were destroyers. Of entire species, the Shadowrunner slipped through the barrier like a ghost. Outside, the Empire fleet was still bombarding the same spot, not knowing that human ships could come and go elsewhere. Miller's ship flew to the Kepler system, where a human colony had been building a new world. What she found there made her sick with rage. The colony was gone. In its place was a massive mining operation. Thousands of humans worked in chains, digging rare metals from the ground. Empire guards with energy whips kept them moving. "Captain," her communications officer said, "I'm picking up transmissions from the guards. They're talking about using the colonists as test subjects for biological weapons." Miller felt her blood turn to ice. What kind of biological weapons? They're trying to create a virus that can pass through our barrier. They want to kill everyone on Earth. Miller had heard enough. Target the guard towers. Fire when ready. The Shadowrunner's weapons were based on the same technology as the barrier. When they fired, the Empire Guard's equipment simply stopped working. Their weapons went dead. Their vehicles crashed. Their communications failed. The human colonists looked up in amazement as their chains fell away. They couldn't see the ship that had freed them, but they knew help had come. "This is Captain Miller of the Earth Defense Force," she broadcast to the colonists. "Gather your families. We're taking you home." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Miller's stealth ships found human colonies on dozen worlds, all being used as slave labor or test subjects. Each time, they freed the colonists and brought them back to the Sol system. President Carter watched the reports in her bunker office. Each rescue mission brought more proof of the Empire's evil nature. "They're not just trying to conquer us," she told General Hayes. "They're trying to exterminate us." "It's worse than that," Hayes replied. "We found records on one of the colonies. The Empire has done this to 43 different species. They use them until they're no longer useful. Then they destroy them. Completely." Carter felt sick. Genocide. On a galactic scale, Hayes confirmed. "We're not fighting for freedom. We're fighting for survival." Dr. Foster entered the office, carrying a new device. "Then it's time to show them what we can do." She placed the device on the table. It looked like a small metal box with glowing crystals inside. "This is a barrier projector," she explained, "but it's designed to work in reverse. Instead of keeping things out, it creates a dead zone where alien technology stops working." Carter stared at the device. "You mean we can turn off their weapons?" "All of them," Foster said. "Their ships, their computers, their life support. Everything they use will just stop working. Our technology uses different principles, so we'll be unaffected." Hayes leaned forward. "How big an area can it cover?" "With the right power source, we could shut down their entire fleet at once." Carter made her decision. "Do it. It's time to end this siege." Back at the barrier, Admiral Kexvar was growing desperate. His fleet had been firing for months with no result. His crews were exhausted. His weapons were overheating. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're getting reports from home. The Empire is collapsing. 17 worlds have declared independence. Food riots are spreading everywhere." Kexvar slammed his fist on the control panel. "Then we break through this barrier now, or we all die trying." He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the Star Killer missile. We're going to ram it into the barrier with everything we have." The Star Killer was the Empire's most powerful weapon. It could turn a star into a black hole, destroying entire solar systems. Using it was an act of desperation. "Sir," the weapons officer said, "if we use that weapon here, the explosion might destroy our own fleet." "Then we'll die as warriors," Kexvar replied. "Fire the missile." The massive weapon launched from the flagship. It was the size of a small moon, powered by the energy of a collapsing star. As it flew toward the barrier, space itself began to twist around it. Inside the Sol system, alarms blared in every human facility. The weapon was detected the moment it launched. "Analysis," Captain Crawford demanded. "It's a star killer," his science officer reported. "If it hits the barrier, it might actually breach it. And if it reaches the sun..." Crawford didn't need to hear more. "If that weapon hit the sun, It would create a black hole that would eventually swallow the entire solar system. "Launch all ships," he ordered. "Every vessel we have." We stopped that. Missile or we all die. The human fleet burst through the barrier like bullets from a gun. 200 ships, all equipped with the new technology, raced toward the incoming weapon. But they weren't alone. Captain Miller's stealth ships had been waiting for this moment. They appeared around the Empire fleet like ghosts, their barrier projectors already charging. "All ships," Miller broadcast, "activate dead zone projectors." Full power. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the Empire fleet, every system failed at once. Weapons went silent. Engines stopped. Life support shut down. 3,000. Warships became floating metal coffins. But the Star Killer missile was still coming. It was too close to the barrier for the dead zone effect to stop it. Captain Crawford made a decision that would be remembered forever. He turned his flagship toward the massive weapon and pushed his engines to maximum power. "Sir," his helmsman sighed, "we're on a collision course." "We can't survive the impact." Crawford smiled grimly. "And we make sure it counts. All power to the barrier projector. Let's see if we can contain a Star Killer explosion." The two objects met in a flash of light that could be seen across the galaxy. The Star Killer's energy was immense, but Crawford's ship had managed to wrap it in a barrier field at the moment of impact. The explosion was contained, but the cost was terrible. Crawford's ship was vaporized instantly. The hero who had saved humanity was gone. In the aftermath, the Empire fleet floated helplessly in space. Their weapons were dead, their ships were powerless, and their leader was in shock. Admiral Kexvar sat in his command chair, staring at the silent controls. His mighty fleet had been defeated without firing a single shot. A voice came over the communications sigh. The Empire was dying. On the capital world of Korvan, Emperor Zarn Thul stared at reports from across the galaxy. 17 worlds had declared independence. Food riots burned through the streets of 30 more planets. The mighty empire that had ruled for 10,000 years was crumbling. "Your Majesty," his advisor Kix said, trembling as he held a data pad, "Admiral Kexvar has returned from the human system. His entire fleet was defeated without destroying a single human ship." The Emperor's ancient eyes burned with rage. "Impossible. 3,000 ships cannot be defeated by 200. The humans have weapons we don't understand," Kix explained. "They can make our technology stop working." Our ships became helpless. The Emperor stood up from his throne. He was over 800 years old and had seen the Empire destroy dozens of species, but he had never faced anything like this. "Summon the War Council," he ordered. "If we cannot defeat the humans with force, we must find another way." Far from the Empire's capital, something extraordinary was happening. A fleet of ancient ships approached the Sol System's barrier. These vessels were unlike anything in the Empire's navy. They were older, more elegant, and they moved with purpose. The fleet belonged to the Wanderers, a mysterious species that had traveled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had watched the Empire grow and spread, but they had never interfered. Until now, Captain Janet Pierce stood on the bridge of the human ship Harmony, watching the Wanderer fleet approach. She had been chosen as Earth's new chief diplomat. After the siege ended, her job was to make contact with anyone who might help humanity. They're requesting permission to enter our space, her communications officer reported. Janet had heard stories about the Wanderers. They were said to be very old and very wise. "Let them through, but keep our weapons ready." The lead Wanderer ship was beautiful. It looked like it was made of crystal and starlight. As it passed through the barrier, Janet felt a strange sensation, like the universe itself was holding its breath. A figure appeared on the main screen. It was tall and graceful, with silver skin and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. This was the Pathfinder, leader of the Wanderer fleet. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the Pathfinder said. Its voice was like music. "I am the Pathfinder of the Wanderer fleet. We have traveled far to speak with you." Janet stepped forward. "Welcome to the Sol System. I'm Captain Pierce. What brings you to our space?" The Pathfinder smiled sadly. "We come because you have done something we thought impossible. You have stood up to the Empire and won. But more than that, you have shown mercy to your enemies." "We're not conquerors," Janet replied. "We just want to be left alone." "But you will not be left alone," the Pathfinder said. "The Empire will never stop trying to destroy you. They have done this before to many species. We have watched in silence as entire civilizations were erased." Janet felt a chill. "How many?" 43. "Species have been completely destroyed by the Empire. Hundreds more have been enslaved or scattered. We have records of them all." The Pathfinder's image changed, showing a star map. Red dots marked dead worlds across the galaxy. There were so many of them. "We Wanderers have lived for millions of years," the Pathfinder continued. "We have seen empires rise and fall. But none have been as cruel as this one. They don't just conquer, they erase entire species from existence." Janet stared at the map. "Why didn't you stop them?" "Because we are few, and they are many. We are explorers, not warriors. But you have shown us a different way. You have proven that the Empire can be defeated." The Pathfinder's expression became urgent. "There are others, Captain Pierce, survivors of the destroyed species. They hide in secret places, waiting for someone strong enough to give them hope." Janet's heart raced. "How many survivors?" "Thousands. Maybe millions. They live in hidden colonies, refugee camps, forgotten stations. They have waited centuries for someone to free them." On Earth, President Carter listened to Janet's report with growing amazement. The Wanderers had given them locations of dozens of hidden settlements. Each one contained survivors of species the Empire claimed were extinct. "This changes everything," she told General Hayes. "We're not just protecting Earth anymore. We're talking about liberating the entire galaxy." Hayes looked worried. "That's a big responsibility. Are we ready for something like that?" Dr. Foster entered the room, carrying another of her inventions. "The question is, are we ready to ignore their suffering? The Empire is planning to use our own people as test subjects for biological weapons. They won't stop until every human is dead." Carter walked to the window, looking out at the busy streets of Washington. People were going about their normal lives, not knowing that their world was about to change again. What would liberation look like? She asked. Foster placed her device on the table. "We send ships to the hidden colonies. We give them our technology. We help them rebuild their civilizations. And we make sure the Empire can never hurt them again." Hayes shook his head. "That's not just liberation. That's revolution. We'd be starting a galactic war." "The war already started," Carter replied, "when the Empire decided to destroy us. We're just choosing whether to fight back." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Carter made her decision. "Begin Project Exodus. We're going to free every survivor we can find." Captain Miller stood in the briefing room of the Shadowrunner, looking at her expanded crew. What had started as a small stealth ship was now the flagship of humanity's liberation fleet. "Our first target is the Kepler Sanctuary," she told her officers. 300 Lumina survivors have been hiding there for 2 centuries. They're peaceful people who just want to live in safety. Her pilot, Lieutenant Dave Cooper, studied the star charts. "The sanctuary is deep in Empire space. It'll take us 3 days to get there undetected." "What about Empire patrols?" asked her weapons officer, Lieutenant Mark Davis. "We'll avoid them," Miller replied. Our job is rescue, not fighting. But if they threaten the survivors, we defend them. The Liberation Fleet consisted of 50 ships, all equipped with the new technology. Each ship could carry 1,000 refugees and had enough supplies to start a new colony dot as the fleet prepared to leave. President Carter gave a speech that was broadcast across the Sol system. "My fellow humans," she said, "today we begin a new chapter in our history. We're not going out to conquer or to rule. We're going out to free those who cannot free themselves. We're going to show the galaxy that there is an alternative to the Empire's tyranny." The ships passed through the barrier one by one, invisible to Empire sensors. Each crew knew they might not come back, but they also knew that millions of lives depended on their success. The first stop was indeed the Kepler Sanctuary. Hidden in an asteroid field, the Lumina survivors had built a small colony inside a hollowed-out rock. They had lived in fear for 200 years, never knowing if the Empire would find them. Captain Miller's ship approached the hidden base carefully. The Lumina were a gentle species that looked like tall, glowing plants. They had once been master gardeners, turning dead worlds into beautiful gardens. "This is Captain Miller of the Earth Liberation Fleet," she broadcast. "We're here to help you." The response came back in a shaky voice. "Please, don't hurt us. We have done nothing wrong." Miller felt her heart break. These people had been hiding so long that they expected every contact to mean death. "We're not here to hurt you," she said gently. "We're here to take you to safety. The humans of Earth offer you sanctuary and friendship." Slowly, carefully, the Lumina emerged from their hiding places. There were indeed 300 of them, including children who had never seen sunlight. When they saw Miller's ships, many of them began to cry with relief. Elder Nim, the oldest Lumina, spoke for his people. "We had given up hope of ever being free again. When the Empire destroyed our worlds, we thought we were the last of our kind." "You're not alone anymore," Miller assured him. "There are others like you, and we're going to find them all." The evacuation took 2 days. The Lumina brought with them seeds from their original homeworld and knowledge that had been lost for centuries. As Miller's ships carried them toward the Sol system, the Lumina sang songs of hope that hadn't been heard in the galaxy for 200 years. But the Empire was not standing still. On Korvan, Emperor Zarnthil had received disturbing reports. "Human ships are moving through our space," General Vex reported. "They appear to be visiting abandoned systems and extinct species homeworlds." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "What are they looking for?" "We're not sure, Your Majesty. But several of our patrol fleets have simply vanished. No distress calls, no wreckage. They just disappeared." The truth was that the human ships were using their dead zone technology to disable Empire patrols without destroying them. The crews were left stranded but alive, their ships powerless until rescue arrived. Meanwhile, other human ships were making contact with more survivor groups. On a forgotten moon, they found a tribe of Vorthik who had escaped when their homeworld was strip-mined. In a nebula, they discovered a floating city of crystalline refugees who had been drifting in space for 50 years. Each rescue was a small miracle. Species that had been declared extinct were alive and grateful for salvation. They brought with them technologies, knowledge, and most importantly, hope. Dr. Foster worked tirelessly to help the R. Prime Minister Velther stared at the view screen in disbelief. The space around Earth was filled with ships from species the Empire had destroyed centuries ago. Luminae garden vessels glowed with living light. Vorthic crystal ships sparkled like diamonds. Refugee fleets that should have been extinct were very much alive. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "we count over 1,000 ships. Many of them are using technology we don't recognize." Velther's claws dug into his command chair. "It doesn't matter. The Star Eater will destroy their sun and every ship in this system. Prepare the weapon. The Star Eater was the Empire's ultimate weapon. Hidden inside Velthur's massive dreadnought, it could turn any star into a black hole. The Empire had used it twice before to destroy entire star systems that rebelled against. Their Rule. Captain Ben Crawford watched the Empire ship from the bridge of his new flagship, the Hope Rising. After his heroic sacrifice had been mourned across the system, Dr. Foster had used advanced medical technology to save his life. Now he commanded the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. All ships, this is Crawford, he broadcast to the combined fleet. Remember, we're not fighting for conquest. We're fighting for the right to exist. For the right of every species to be free. Beside Earth's ships flew vessels from 12 different species. The Lumina had modified their garden. Ships into living fortresses. The Vorthek had turned their crystal vessels into energy projectors. Each refugee species had contributed their unique technology to the defense. Elder Nim spoke from his ship, the Blooming Hope. Captain Crawford, my people have not fought a war in 500 years, but we will not let the Empire destroy our new home. Similar messages came from all the refugee commanders. Species that had lived in fear for centuries were finally ready to stand and fight. President Carter watched from Earth's command center, surrounded by leaders from every species in the system. The chamber looked like something from a dream. Beings of every shape and size working together as one. Dr. Foster, she said, is the mega barrier ready? Foster nodded, her face showing both exhaustion and determination. We've combined the shield technology from every species. If we can coordinate all our ships at once, we can create a barrier field large enough to protect the entire system. And the Star Eater? That's the tricky part, Foster admitted. The weapon works by creating a cascade reaction in the sun's core. But if we can contain the initial burst with our barrier, the reaction will collapse back on itself. General Hayes looked worried. What if the barrier fails? Then we all die, Foster said simply. But if we do nothing, we die anyway. Carter looked around the room at the alien faces that had become so familiar. These refugees had lost everything. To the Empire. Their worlds, their families, their civilizations. But they had found something new here, hope. Do it, she ordered. In space, Velthur's ship moved closer to the sun. The Star Eater needed to be within a certain range to work properly. As they approached, the refugee fleet formed a protective wall around Earth. Human ships, Velthur broadcast, you cannot stop what is about to happen. The Star Eater will destroy your sun and every ship in this system. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Captain Crawford's response was calm and confident. Velthur, you're about to learn something important. When different species work together, they can achieve impossible things. Today, we're going to show you the power of unity. The Empire ship reached its firing position. Deep inside the dreadnought, the Star Eater began to charge. The weapon drew power from the ship's core, building up energy that could crack a planet. Weapon charged, the Empire weapons officer reported. Ready to fire. Velthur smiled cruelly. Fire. End this rebellion forever. The Star Eater launched its deadly beam toward the sun. The energy was invisible, but devastating, designed to trigger a reaction that would consume the star from within. But as the beam raced through space, something extraordinary happened. Every ship in the refugee fleet activated their barrier generators. At the same time, human vessels, Lumine garden ships, Vorthik crystal craft, and dozens of others all projected their protective fields toward a single point. The barriers merged and combined, creating a web of energy around the sun unlike anything ever seen. The Star Eater's beam hit the combined barrier and stopped cold. Impossible, Velthur whispered. Nothing can stop the Star Eater. Dr. Foster watched her instruments with growing excitement. It's working! The barriers are holding the energy in a containment field. But the weapon wasn't finished. Inside the containment field, the Star Eater's energy was trying to reach the sun. The barrier held, but just barely. All ships, Crawford broadcast, hold your positions. Don't let the field collapse. For long minutes, the two forces struggled. The Empire's ultimate weapon pressed against the combined will of a dozen species. Ships shook under the strain. Barrier generators overheated. But the field held dot, and something unexpected happened. The contained energy began to collapse back on itself, just as Dr. Foster had predicted. Without a star to consume, the Star Eater's power turned inward. Sir, Velthur's science officer said in panic, the weapon's energy is reflecting back. Toward us. Velthur spun around. What? The barrier is acting like a mirror. Our own weapon is coming back at us. The reflected energy beam struck Velthur's ship with the force of a collapsing star. The massive dreadnought was torn apart in seconds, taking the Empire's most powerful weapon with it. The refugee fleet watched in amazement as their enemy was destroyed by his own ultimate weapon. This is Crawford to all ships, the captain announced. The threat is over. We've won. Across the fleet, beings from dozens of species cheered in languages that hadn't been heard in the galaxy for centuries. They had not just survived, they had triumphed, but the real victory was just beginning. News of the Empire's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On world after world, oppressed species rose up against their imperial overseers. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years began to crumble. On Korvan, Emperor Zarnthul watched his empire fall apart. Rebellions erupted on 100 worlds. His governors were fleeing their posts. His armies were deserting. Your Majesty? His advisor Kix said, 17 more worlds have declared independence. The Thermac Republic is offering to help refugees escape imperial space. The Emperor's ancient eyes were filled with disbelief. How can this be happening? We ruled this galaxy for millennia. The humans showed everyone that we could be defeated, Kix replied. Now every species wants their freedom. Back in the Sol system, President Carter faced the biggest challenge of her presidency. Representatives from hundreds of species were requesting permission to join the growing coalition. The small barrier around Earth was becoming the center of a galactic revolution. We need a new government, she told the assembled leaders. Something that represents everyone equally. Elder Nim raised a glowing hand. The Lumina propose a federation. Each species maintains its independence, but we work together for mutual benefit. The idea was revolutionary. Instead of one species ruling others, every civilization would have an equal voice. It was the opposite of everything the Empire represented. Dr. Foster had been working on the technical aspects. We can share our barrier technology with everyone. No species will ever be defenseless again. And we can create a communication network that no empire can control. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Federation was born, with Earth as its first capital. But unlike the Empire's system of conquest, the Federation was based on cooperation and mutual respect. Captain Miller, now promoted to Admiral, led the first Federation fleet on a mission to liberate Imperial prison worlds. Her ships found millions of beings who had been enslaved for generations. The joy of their freedom was overwhelming. This is Admiral Miller to all Federation vessels, she broadcast as they freed another prison camp. Remember, we're not conquerors. We're liberators. Every being we free makes the galaxy a little brighter. 1 year later, the old empire was gone. In its place, the Federation included over 200 species, each contributing their unique skills and knowledge to the common good. Captain Steve Thompson, now the Federation's chief engineer, stood on New Geneva Station, a massive space. habitat that served as the Federation's meeting place. Through the observation windows, he could see ships from dozens of worlds coming and going peacefully. "Hard to believe it all started with Earth shutting its gates," he said to his companion, Dr. Amy Foster. Foster smiled as she watched children from different species playing together in the station's gardens. "We didn't shut our gates forever. We just closed them long enough to become strong enough to open them to everyone." Ambassador Jake Morrison, now the Federation's first Secretary General, gave a speech to mark the anniversary of Earth's isolation. 1 year ago, he said to representatives from across the galaxy, humanity made the hardest decision in our history. We chose isolation over submission. We chose uncertainty over slavery. We chose hope over despair. The audience included beings from species that had been extinct for centuries, now thriving in their new freedom. Today, we celebrate not just humanity's survival, but the birth of something greater. A galaxy where every species can live in peace, where no one rules over others, where cooperation replaces conquest. As Jake spoke, the Gur,